You're listening to a Brawl Network production, and this is Meanie's Bird Recap.
Can you feel that thing that's squeezing out your doggone hands? That thing that's beating your doggone chest right now. Can you feel it?
Win or lose, these guys will be here for you after every single game.
Do you think you're better than me?
Here are your hosts, Giovanni Hamilton, Conor Myles, and ECW Original, the Blue Meanie.
The Meanie's Birds Recap. You always gotta love that video. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Welcome to Meanie's Birds Recap on Eagles Brawl, even though this is the Blue Meanie show, and I just completely stole his introduction real quick.
Man, it's all good. It's cool. Thanks for having me again another week here on the Brawl Network. I wish it was under better circumstances, but here we are.
I wish it was too, my friend. I completely wish it was too. And then we got our Eagles Brawl insider, Ed Cross, in the house as always. Ed, greatly appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thanks
and
for
then
being here.
The Philly Sports of Giovanni, the host, Giovanni Hamilton, who I just saw you post a video on Twitter. Do you mind telling the viewers what that video was about in case they missed it?
I just had, drum roll please, Zach
Let's go.
on my podcast.
Zach Hurts.
Yeah.
Wow.
So cool.
So if I get this correct, tomorrow on Philly Sports with Giovanni at 8 a.m. Eastern time, you talk to a future Hall of Fame tight end?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. I'm jealous. But I think that's pretty cool. So, guys, after all that exciting news, and we're all excited to hear that for episode at 8 a.m. tomorrow, live on Philly Sports with Giovanni, we have to talk about this loss to the New York Giants, unfortunately. So we have to bring in the bad news now. We have to dive into this game. What did you guys think? Because yeah, that was the fun part. That was the best part of the episode. So that was the good news. Here's the bad news.
Yeah.
We're actually going to talk about the game now.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to hear everybody in this little chat's thoughts about the game. Start off with Blue Meanie. It is your recap show, man. Start off with your opinion of the game.
Well, here's what I'm afraid of. I think we can record this episode and air it next week, and then the week after that, and the week after that. I think it's going to be a little bit of a Groundhog's Day, week in and week out. It's just, to me, it was just another matter of, I don't know what's going on with the defense. I mean, forget the offensive play calling as well, but the defense itself. I mean, our cornerbacks look like little kids playing with their big brothers out there. These guys, the offense is getting these easy passes down low, and their coach, the opposition's wide receivers are making spectacular catches, like catch it a week type plays, and our cornerbacks are just spectators watching, and it's just frustrating because they busted out that big touchdown for Boston Scott, and then the Giants just throw two huge passes, and then they take the 7 points right back. So it's just a matter of bad play calling on the offense because we don't have a proper offensive coordinator, and there's nobody to be the yin to the yang for Doug. Dougie P's a little bit pass happy, being the quarterback. You got to run the ball a little bit more, and then you got Schwartz on the other side playing bend but don't break, but our cornerbacks are pretty flexible. So they'll never break, but they keep bending. So that's my take. Just horrible coaching on the defense and bad play calling on the offense.
Fire everybody. I completely agree. I'm just kidding.
Hopefully I didn't steal everybody's points, but it was just I've had better feeling root canals than watching that game. It was watching it like this, with my hand on my face, just going like, come on. There's that spark with Boston Scott, and then nothing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ed, what was your take on it, man? I'm interested to hear. Were you there at the game? I forgot.
Yeah, I was there.
I'm sorry to hear it.
It was so well, it's not that far from where I live, so it wasn't that bad. But coming home, I drove through some superstorm that was pretty treacherous. But It was just an eerie feeling in a stadium like MetLife Stadium that seats 82,500 fans, and it was completely empty. It was a weird feeling for the media. And I know we've been through these empty stadiums before, but I just can't imagine how the players are dealing with that. Just bringing that energy level. It's tough when you don't have anybody in the stands and you're playing in an empty stadium. I know every team's dealing with it, and Philadelphia is going to deal with it again after the city ruled today that fans can't come to the final 3 home games the Eagles have. So it's just going to continue to look really strange. But, Blue Meanie, you mentioned the defense, and it was kind of surprising that the secondary played that way. They were the 4th-ranked pass defense in the NFL coming into that game. They'd only been giving up 209 yards passing, and they go up against Daniel Jones and they give up I don't know what it was, 250, close to 250. And the 2 pass plays you mentioned after that electric run from Boston Scott, that was the turning point to me when the Giants got the ball back, and bam, 27 yards to Sterling Shepard, boom, 39 yards to Golden Tate. And next thing you know, it's first and goal at the 10, right after the Eagles pull within 14-11. Not only Scott's run, but Miles Sanders had a 2-point conversion run. So that to me was the turning point, and very, very surprising that the secondary kind of gave up that yardage. But I think the Eagles just ran into a very determined New York Giants team. The Giants felt like they should have won that first game, had control of that game on October 22nd for 3.5 quarters and let it get away. And the Giants coach, Joe Judge, even said afterward this was a game we wanted to make sure we reversed the outcome of. And I just think they were a more determined, better prepared team, and that's why they won.
Do you get the sense that Doug Pearson's unraveling a little bit?
Why do you say that?
The reaction from him today at the press conference, and then I don't know if you heard the sound bit with 94.1 with Angelo this morning when Angelo starts it off with the talking about everybody's blaming Coach. He'd 72% on that poll, and Doug threatens to hang up on him right away.
Well, it was a very angry Doug in the morning, and then 4 hours later when he talked to us, he was still disappointed. But he's had some very bizarre press conferences this season, every year, but this year it seems like they have a tendency to veer into the twilight zone occasionally. And, that was sort of the case today, when he was asked about Jalen Hurts. He kind of got sarcastic, and, one of the reporters asked, do you think you should take Carson Wentz off the field like the Saints do with Taysom Hill when they bring him in? They bring Breeze out, gives Hill another potential weapon on the field, because everybody knows nobody's going to throw the ball to Wentz. No. Let's face it. So it's just kind of you're playing with 10 guys at that point, and everybody knows what Hurts is going to do. So he got a little snarky, but it was just really strange to see some of his behavior. It was kind of, to me, it was up and down, just like his football team, up and down, all over the place, and that's the way the Eagles are playing.
I don't want to ask, but I have to hear it, Giovanni. Well, what was your take? Because we haven't really talked about the game that much. We played Call of Duty Cold War last night, but we refused to talk about the game. We were like, no negativity. We're playing video games. So now I get to finally ask you, and I get to hear your opinion. What'd you think, bud?
First of all, it's bad when my room's not green, but I love how you said it. The cornerbacks are spectators. They might as well just be in the seats watching the game. They did not show up yesterday at all. I think they should have played better. I'm really disappointed in Doug's play calling. We really need an offensive coordinator. I'm just very confused on where Doug's getting these plays and why he's calling them.
That's a really brutally honest take, and I agree with every point you made. My huge thing is Jim Schwartz refuses to play press, and he finally has a press corner who has great ability in press. And then you look at Rasul Douglas, who goes to, I hate bringing this up, but he goes to the Panthers and he plays well in press. Guy refuses to press. These corners give him too much space. Every quarterback takes advantage of it routinely. The linebackers are good, not great. Not even, I don't even want to say good. They're average. Gets taken advantage of weekly with these end arounds and all this stuff. And these these options by Daniel Jones, and it's sad on the defensive side, but on the offensive side, I'm completely baffled. I thought you fired Mike Groh to make some changes. Why did you get worse? That's the thing here is you have to finally look at it and say, the Eagles have tried to fix this offensive coaching staff the last couple of years anyways, even with the departures of Frank Wright and John DeFilippo. They tried to get guys. They tried to promote Groh, who did well as a wide receiver coach with his team, and think that he could be the answer offensive coordinator. They've given Press Taylor all these chances to grow within the organization, become a play caller with his team. They brought Morningwig back due to familiarity. They bring in Rich Scangarello, who was tossed aside by Denver. Where is the identity in this offensive play calling? We all know Doug is the play caller, but when these things fail, we keep having all these scapegoats. It looks like the issue is finally time to admit it. It's Doug Peterson. He's a huge issue for this, but I'm also on the side that says you can't blame Carson Wentz. I think when things start to go bad for Carson Wentz, I could think off the top of my head, the 2018 season against New Orleans, when he starts to fall apart, and then the week after against Dallas, they finally decided to put him on the shelf finally due to his back injury. His play was starting to fall apart then. He's known to, kind of just struggle at times as a starting quarterback in this league. I firmly believe he's a franchise quarterback. I firmly believe in the talent he is, but to completely play that way he is I'm baffled by it. I'm completely baffled by it. I think when you're looking at who to blame, it's okay to say it's a collective effort and to say it's Doug Peterson's fault, it's Carson Wentz's fault, it's Howie Roseman's fault, it's Jim Schwartz's fault, because they all have a hand in it one way or another.
Well, with the last season and a half, we always had the crutch of, well, there's a lot of injuries, a lot of guys out, stuff like that. But now, we had Malik Jackson come back, we have Alshon back, we have a lot of great players back, and yet somehow the play hasn't really improved. And it's just first of all, I knew this game was going to be jinxed when they talked about how many games the Eagles had over the Giants leading up to this. I was like, oh, they just jinxed the game. But I think, it comes down to play calling. And it just seems things have been weird over the last couple of years. Like we got, when we got Tate after the England game, 2 years ago, and then you have the offensive coordinators like, oh, well, we don't know how to fit him into our scheme. It's like, you're the offensive coordinator, you figure it out. And like in professional wrestling, they always say, we had to fire the wrestler because we had nothing, creative had nothing for him. Well, fire the creative. You have the talent there, get better creative. Same with, football. You got to work with, the coaching has to, coach these players up better, get them angrier, get them a little more focused. I don't know if Doug's more of a coach or is he more of a friend? When it comes to, his relationship with the players and stuff like that, he needs somebody to, in my opinion, I think he needs to get somebody to get on Carson a little bit better, as far as, his mechanics, his footwork and stuff like that. Cause even it's, small stuff like his footwork, he's got a wide stance where, before he used to stand tall in the pocket, and, why are all of his passes getting batted down at the line of scrimmage? It's just there's something there with the mechanics, something with the coaching. We need to get somebody in there who's the bad cop.
Yeah. And I agree with Conor, though. I don't think, you got to put some of the blame on Carson Wentz. I mean, he's been in this offense for 5 years. He's the one at the line of scrimmage who sees what's happening with the defense, and he's given the reign to change a play. And, how often is he audibling out of plays? I mean, these are questions that he'll probably get asked on Wednesday when we talk to him. But, this is his offense. He should know this offense. No matter who's calling the plays, he understands the concepts. And if he's changing plays and audibling into something different, then that's on him. And as far as Doug and his play calling, I mean, when the Eagles decided to go with this collaborative approach in the offseason with, the non-traditional no offensive coordinator, they brought in all these different voices. And, I think he's maybe listening to too many of those voices. He kind of admitted when we asked him about why he went for 2 points when they pulled within 4 rather than go for 1 to, potentially have the opportunity to kick a game-tying field goal late. And they went for 2 again, and they missed it. And he was asked about it, and he said, well, I trusted the guys upstairs. So, I think he's got a lot of voices in his head, a lot of clutter, as much as they won't admit that. I think it's the old cliche, too many cooks are spoiling the broth. And I think we're seeing that with Doug. I mean, I just think he's probably getting pulled in so many directions and he can't focus and he can't zero in on what his game plan, what he wants the game plan to look like. He's deferring to others. And maybe, like you said, Blue Meanie, maybe he is, he is a nice guy. Maybe he just doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings and make them feel like they are part of the team. And it's to a detriment to the game planning.
At some point, Jeffrey Lurie has to step in. He's always involved. He's hands-on with his team as much as every other owner in this. I mean, Jerry Jones gets credited for being how hands-on he is with his team. I think Jeffrey Lurie's along the same lines. When something starts not going the right way, Lurie intervenes. And like I just mentioned, the growth thing, the Chip Kelly thing, like if something's not going to go right, we know Jeffrey Lurie's going to intervene. My question is, who does he go after? Does he tell Doug, listen, like, Barney Morningwig's going to have to call the plays. Dude Staley's going to have to call the plays. Somebody's going to have to call the plays, but not you. We need to help you with this. Does that happen this season? Or because I don't know, Ed. I'm surprised. Like, I wasn't expecting this, so I don't know where they go from here with this.
I mean, this was Lurie's idea to have this type of approach with no offensive coordinator, quote unquote. I mean, it was his idea to have this collaborative approach. So to give up on it, I mean, I could see him giving up on it. He can't Chip Kelly with a game left in the season a few years ago. I could see him switching gears in midstream, but this is all, when you start to point fingers, I mean, you got to start there, I think, with Lurie stepping in and making him fire Mike Groh. I mean, we all thought that was the right move at the time, I guess, but Groh was, I think, good for Carson. He wasn't buddy, I think, like Press Taylor seems to be. And that's a detriment to Carson. So I just think you have to start at the top with Lurie, and I'm not sure it's a good idea. I'd never liked the meddlesome owner. We've seen that, with Daniel Snyder in Washington, and like you mentioned, Jerry Jones. But I think Lurie is the one that wanted this approach. This was his idea. He wanted Mike Groh fired, Carson Walsh fired, and I think Aaron Moorhead's a good receivers coach. That was a good move, but this too many cooks thing, I mean, too many voices in Doug's head, I don't think is a good idea.
I just think they got to their plan C, though, because originally they looked like they wanted to hire Graham Harrell out of USC to be their offensive coordinator, and when he decided not to join them because he wanted some type of play calling duties, I think they were just kind of like, well, not much else we want to do, because, I mean, we talked about it multiple times on the show. Jim Caldwell doesn't end up being here. Who's the other offensive coordinator I can think of that they were talking about? Anyway, they just don't have an offensive coordinator that it looks like they kind of pivoted to this plan after Graham Harrell potentially didn't work out. It's not like it's the first time they pivoted plans either. I mean, Doug Peterson was a plan A, but this time it's not working out. So it's interesting. I don't know what you're going to do. I think you have to keep Doug Peterson around. I don't think you fire Doug Peterson, but with the results the way they're going, I think there's going to be a lot of guys that won't be with this team next year on that coaching staff. I think Jim Schwartz is going to be a part of that too.
I think, I mean, before they even hired, Doug Peterson, they hired Jim Schwartz as the defensive coordinator. And I wonder if he'll be the first sacrificial lamb to, say, hey, we need a change here. Jim Schwartz, is a respected defensive coordinator, but for whatever reason, his players aren't reacting to him or listening to him. Maybe maybe they hear him like Charlie Brown heard his parents. Like, wah, 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 wah. Maybe they just tuned him out, and maybe they need to, shake something up at least defensively to get these players to go, oh, okay, maybe the next shoe will be me. Maybe I need to step up my play or something like that. But maybe he needs to be he was the first hire, before Peterson. Maybe he'll be the first coach to get the axe before, the team finally wakes up and says, hey, man, we got to step up our play. Maybe there's a comfort zone where, the players will, make mistakes and do things, and they'll go, well, we're good. We know the coach won't throw us under the bus in the press conference, and issues like that, where you got to do something with the coaching to make these guys realize how imperative it is. It's one thing to say you're angry and we're going to get better, and then there's actually devising a plan to be better.
Yeah, I go into the offseason and I say, hey, Doug, when you're your most successful, it's because we put veteran good offensive coaching around you to help build you up. We thought you were at the point where you can do it on your own. You're not. We have to face the facts. We still want you as our head coach. These guys want to play for you. You're still a great leader of men. At times you do have some good offensive play calling, but right now you're showing us why you're struggling, and we need to put some stronger guys around you, some stronger voices around you to help build you up like we did when we first hired you. Giovanni, my question to you is, if you're in Jeffrey Lurie's shoes, what are the first couple changes you make with this team?
It's definitely fire Jim Schwartz, get a new defensive coordinator. I don't think you fired Doug. I just think you add an offensive coordinator and a better quarterback coach who's not so buddy-buddy with Carson.
Yep, I completely agree. And this is a good point that Mike brings up on the screen right here. Doug does need help. It's plain and simple, but he does always say he wants to be play caller. I agree with him. And Ed, you said it multiple times yourself being in these press conferences. You never feel like Doug Peterson will ever accept the opportunity to give up play calling.
No, I don't. He's been consistent from day one that's his favorite part of this job. And, we saw, in Chicago, Matt Nagy had the plug pulled on his play calling, and they're turning it over to Bill Lazor, who was in Philadelphia as quarterbacks coach with Chip Kelly. But that, to me, is kind of like the beginning of the end, in my opinion, of Matt Nagy in Chicago. Once you take that duty away, especially on a full-time basis, that's kind of the beginning of the end. So if you mandate Doug to do that, I think that he'll be on his way out the door shortly after. I mean, if it happens this season, if they let Deuce call the plays or Stoutland or Morningweg, whoever, then I think that's just kind of the beginning of the end, and Doug won't be back. So I don't see any change in that regard unless the Eagles feel like they are going to move on from Doug. And I have to be honest, I think that there is a chance they do move on from him at the end of this season. We still have 7 games left, and we'll see what kind of fight the Eagles have. We'll see how strong that locker room stays together over these next 7 games. They're not easy games. I think the record of these next 5 teams is like 30 and 10. I had it in a story today, but these next 5 teams have won a lot of games.
It's 32-13 actually, to be exact. I do recall seeing that.
Yeah, so
I need to highlight what you just said, and we need to repeat it so everybody hears it. You think there is a chance Doug Peterson loses his head coaching job this offseason?
I would not say that is not. That's an impossibility. No, I think there is that chance that he could. I don't know what percentage of a chance I'd put at that at this point, but not a very big percentage. But I think, you can't discount that possibility because they're not going to move on from Carson. Carson's locked in with his contract, and unless he gets it turned around, I could see them trying to maybe find somebody that can come in and get the best out of Carson, because Doug clearly hasn't been able to do that these last couple of seasons. And, as much as I kind of hate to see it, because I do like Doug, it's the reality of the situation. It's a business, and I wouldn't discount that possibility happening.
I wouldn't either. Jeffrey Lurie is an aggressive owner.
Yeah.
He's an aggressive owner, and I agree with you. As much as the fan base and the sports media and everybody else in the road wants to make it seem, I don't believe that Jeffrey Lurie would want to move on from Carson Wentz. I truly don't. And the contract states it. They would not be as comfortable as they were to give him that contract, knowing the details of it every year, if they had any doubts of moving on from him. And I don't think that's going to change. I think that this team would rather choose Carson Wentz over Doug Peterson also, which is crazy. I think that's crazy for people to hear, because this team again won the Super Bowl without Carson Wentz. It was Doug Peterson that was there that got done Lombardi for them. So it's hard for people to hear. And a lot of the comments, I don't want to put all of them up right now because there's a lot of them, but they're all saying they don't believe that's going to happen. But I don't think you can discount it either. I think that's a brutally honest analyst, and I think Ed, being around the team, covering them as long as you have, being a fan of this team, Jeffrey Lurie is that aggressive, and he would make that pull if he felt the need to do so. He would rather do it before it's too late. Like same thing he did with Chip Kelly. He pulled the plug before it was too late. I agree with you on that.
Here's the thing, though, too. It's tough. It could be difficult to evaluate this team because of the offseason that they had. Very different. But, there were 31 other teams in that same boat. So I don't know how you can really make the case to do that. But I could see them leaning on that and saying, listen, this was an off season like no other. We couldn't be together. We brought in all these new coaches, and we really couldn't collaborate as well as we'd like on Zoom. You've heard the players talk about they can only spend like 15 minutes at a time in the locker room together, so the bonding is an issue. But again, it's something that every team is dealing with. So I don't know how much you can put stock into that, but other teams have dealt with it. But the Eagles, maybe they just haven't done a good job of that. Maybe that saves Doug. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead, me. Sorry.
No, please.
I'm just gonna say it real quick. I would prefer that they keep Doug and try it with an offensive coordinator and say, let's go back to our original approach when we hired you, because I think this team responds to him well as a head coach. But it's Jeffrey Lurie. You cannot discount his how he likes to change things up and make things better. So we'll see.
That's the thing about 2020. It's like the ultimate mulligan. It's just you can say, hey, it's 2020. We had no OTAs. We had limited practice, and I didn't even know you could only be in the locker room 15 minutes at a time. Stuff like
Crazy.
that. But that said, it's just I always equate things to wrestling because that's my background. But I see a lot of parallels in both worlds because I have friends who've done pro wrestling. I know guys who've gone to pro wrestling from the NFL, and we talk. And the sign, Doug Peterson is the leader of this team. And a lot of times, in ECW, one of the best creative minds in wrestling was Paul Heyman during the ECW run. That said, the greatest, one of Paul's greatest traits was if he couldn't think of anything better, he would listen to the locker room and he would listen to his performers. And if you came up with an idea that was just as good or better as something that he could come up with, he would go with it. And I think a lot of, somebody needs to, talk to Doug and say, or even if it needs to come down to Doug to say, hey, maybe some of my ideas aren't working. Hey, how about for a game deuce, you call the plays and take a little bit of pressure off of him, and he could worrying about the players themselves and stuff like that. It's just a matter of Doug needs to maybe look in the mirror and say, hey, maybe I should divvy up some duty. I'll call quarter 1, quarter 3, quarter whatever. Deuce, you call quarter 2, just to throw the other team off, because maybe these teams are watching film tape and they Doug's play calling is becoming pretty predictable in some sorts, So maybe they need to do something to switch it up. But even if they do, do the switch with Doug Peterson, then there's also the thing of Howie Roseman and getting players in here to actually make the team a little bit better. When you're using your second round pick on a backup quarterback and not maybe an offensive lineman, that's a problem as well. I mean, like I've said, ultimately, Carson's the quarterback, and he's got to know this play. He's got to know the scheme a little bit better. He's got to perform better. But they haven't really done him any favors with the people they've put around, because this team's getting a little bit older, a little bit longer in the tooth. Who are you putting around him to make him feel like he's not going to get murdered? Because how many times has he been sacked this year? The offensive line has not done him any favors. He spent more time on his back than I did in the wrestling ring. I could tell you the light bulbs in every major arena in the United States. I'm sure Carson Wentz could tell you what the light bulb count is in each stadium, because he keeps getting sacked. Howie Roseman's got to do something to get some protection in here so he can maybe make better decisions and not worry about who's going to kill him, who's coming for him. Maybe he's hearing footsteps.
There is a good side of Carson Wentz in this game now. It might not seem like it, but this is his first game without a turnover.
Yes.
I'll drink that.
I was gonna ask you, Giovanni. This question on the screen, it looked like you were reading it. We all have seen Wentz with amazing ability to make plays. Is it more Wentz regressing or Doug holding him back? You looked like you were thinking about your answer for that question. What was it?
It's definitely. I don't think that Carson Wentz is regressing. I think he can be the same Carson Wentz, even better if Carson does, or if Doug does let him go more. I think Doug is really holding him back. I think he's holding him on a short leash, and he needs to let him go.
I agree.
Whereas I agree, let the Bronco buck.
Yeah,
I never thought we'd get there.
I think Wentz has, he always has had some mechanical issues that he's had to work through back from the start of his career, and those teachers aren't in the room, or they're not helping him with his mechanics. I don't know. I think Doug is kind of letting him go. I mean, he's given him the license to throw deep every few plays, and I'm not sure that's always the answer, to go deep. And yesterday was really windy, and the deep balls, the Giants don't want you to get past them, but he did try one or two. I think once to Hightower on a third down throw. It was, wasn't a good pass. But I think Doug's kind of given him a free rein, and I think he's given him the opportunity to change plays. I mean, but for some reason it's, Carson's completion percentage is not very good for a starting quarterback. And you look at yesterday, he completed 21 passes, but he had 16 incomplete passes. That's barely over 50%. You have to be better as a quarterback with your completion percentage. You have to stay on the field, and then to go 0 for 9 on third down. I know the play calling was suspect, but I think the execution was bad too. It's great he didn't have a turnover, Giovanni. I agree with you. First time this year he hasn't, but he's still stuck at 12 touchdown passes and 12 interceptions. Didn't have a touchdown pass yesterday. You have to be better if you're Carson Wentz, especially on third down. 0 for 9 is an anchor that they're going to wear around their neck for years. It had been since, I think, 2004 since they failed to pick up a first down on third down. That's dreadful. You can't win football games if you can't stay on the field on third down.
No, that's why I think it's fair to blame. I think you just detailed it perfectly how you can blame each and every asset of this team. It's Carson has to be better. That's the thing. We know that's how they get the talent that the guy is. We know he's a franchise caliber quarterback. We know that the Eagles go as far as Carson Wentz takes them. But I think the issue with this team is he's struggling this year, and this team is so reliant on Carson Wentz to play good. You're seeing it now, how much they rely on Carson Wentz to play at the level that he's shown them they can play at. And when he can't play well at that level, you don't have anybody on this coaching staff that can get him out of his struggles. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And that's why I say it's all their faults. It's not just Carson Wentz, and it's not just Doug Peterson. We don't have to just pick one person. We don't have to choose a side. It seems like there's always these debates through radio, sports talk radio and online on whenever we discuss the Eagles. But if you're going to be 3-5-1, it's not one person taking you to that. It's multiple facets of this team. And we just discussed it from the start of the episode. The defense is playing awful. Carson Wentz is not consistent enough this season, more or less playing worse majority of the games this year. And Doug Peterson, just continues to dwindle. It's crazy. Never really thought that they would get to this point, especially after you watch them win the Super Bowl. It's just, I can't believe we're here at this point right now. But let me just bring up real quick that Meanie's Birds recap is powered by Eagles Brawl, which is powered by DraftKings now. You can go to DraftKings, DKNG.co/Brawl Pod. That's BRAWL pod. And you can sign up real quick. You can do a minimum deposit of $5 and get your chance to win millions. That is millions on a free entry. Thanks to us, courtesy of the Eagles Brawl of the Brawl Network. That's DraftKings. Go over there. Win some millions. Let us know if we get you some money. That'd be great. But yeah, guys, I can't believe it. And then I think yesterday
this is not the new norm we signed up for.
It is not the new norm. But then you see Carson yesterday, he plays conservative. He doesn't want to play the hero ball, which is what we're all talking about now. And they look that bad. You look like he tried to tone it down. That was him purposely trying to tone it down, not play like how he's been playing the last couple of weeks. And rough. I don't really know what this team goes for from here.
Well, I think my greatest frustration coming out of Sunday's game wasn't Carson Wentz. I think it was just, and we talked about this, Conor, I think on a show last week, is how different will this team look coming out of the bye. I mean, I think the expectation was, they played one game in 24 days, starting back with that first Giants game, and then they had the bye. So you would think that over that time, they would come up with something different, a different approach, different plays. But we didn't see any of that. I mean, Jalen Hurts came in the game and they ran him twice. I mean, they're just stacking the box against Jalen Hurts. And Doug said defenses have adjusted. Well, where have your adjustments been? I mean, why not be proactive and you be the one to adjust before the defense does? There were no jet sweeps to Jalen Reagor. I mean, no misdirection plays whatsoever. No screen passes. I mean, this team has, I think, 38 screen pass yards all season, well below the team ahead of them. I mean, this used to be a great screen pass team, but we're not even seeing that. I mean, we just saw the same old play designs, the same old plays that we saw in the first 8 games, and that to me was my greatest frustration. I said it. I think they're going to be the same, and they were, and that's what I kind of frustrates me is I expected something different from a game plan approach, especially playing the Giants a second time in 3 weeks. And some of the Giants players alluded to it, or some of the Eagles players alluded to it, that the Giants did some things differently that they didn't see the first time. But to me, I don't think the Eagles showed anything different at all. It was the same approach. And shame on them because they had 24 days with one game to figure out a different way to do things.
So apparently, vanilla isn't only Doug Pearson's favorite ice cream flavor; it's his favorite play calling design. Very vanilla.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But
That's a good question from Dakota there about feeling bad for Kelsey. Listen,
I couldn't believe how bad he played. I couldn't believe it.
You know what? There could be a reason for that. I mean, his 2 guards were Sua Opeta and Matt Pryor. Listen, those guys might be decent, reserve guys, deep reserve guys, but they are not starting caliber guards in this NFL. I mean, maybe Matt Pryor will eventually become a tackle, but, I think Kelsey had his plate very full with, probably answering questions from Opeta and Pryor before each play. Like, what am I doing? How am I supposed to block? And then Kelsey has to deal with that. And then he has to go out and do his job against Dalvin Tomlinson, who weighs 360 pounds and is lined up on his nose the whole game. I mean, I think Kelsey was probably dealing with the inexperienced guards as much as he was dealing with Dalvin Tomlinson on the other side of him.
I agree with you on that. I couldn't believe on the snaps.
Yeah, right. I mean, his focus, I'm sure he was getting pulled in different directions with trying to be a teacher, a coach, a leader with the 2 guards. I mean, I don't know why Herbig didn't play. I mean, I know he had the finger injury, and then Doug said it was a hand thing after the game, and I don't know why Isaac Siamalo wasn't ready. He practiced all week. I mean, I just think that, listen, you need to win coming out of the bye, and if those guys were anywhere close to being 100%, they should have been on the field.
And this comes back down to this comes down to Howie Roseman. And I'm assuming the Eagles are going to have a high draft pick. You got to get some offensive linemen in this next draft, in the first and second rounds. You got to get some. You put all this money into your quarterback, protect your investment. If I go out and, buy this spectacular car, I'm not going to park on the streets of South Philly. I'm going to go invest in a parking space where nobody else can touch it. So you got to make sure your quarterback is focused on throwing the passes and not running for his life. And the same like with you said with Kelsey was not only did he have this big fella in front of him, he's worried about what it's that song, clowns to the left of me, clowns to the right to me. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. So,
Steelers Wheel. I know that song, Steelers Wheel, I think.
Yes, sir. But that's Kelsey's situation.
Yep.
Did you guys see that report that came out today about Carson Wentz having sloppy practice tendencies?
No.
Yeah.
I saw Mike K reporter. Hey, what'd you think? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think Mike Silver had that report. And Doug was asked about it, and he said, listen, you guys aren't even at practice that often or that for that long amount of time. Doesn't know where the report's coming from. I don't know if he's practicing sloppily. I mean, like I said, I'm at practice for 10 minutes every couple days. I mean, you don't really see what he does after we leave. So I don't know. I mean, it could be true. I mean, I just think, again, it comes down to, what's wrong with Carson? We've been asking this, since September. And the answer could just be Carson. Carson needs to be better. And I know he hasn't had the protection. Meanie talked about it there. I mean, they are injured. Brandon Brooks, gosh, that was a huge loss losing him. Yeah. They did draft Dillard in the first round. Mulata looks like, he could be a tackle of the future. Jack Driscoll has been kind of pegged as a tackle, but I think when they drafted him, they wanted to play him to play guard, but he had to play tackle because of Lane Johnson's situation with his ankle. And I mean, that offensive line, I think, is a big reason, too, for Carson. He's just, I think he could be seeing ghosts coming at him. He could be trying to rush things a little bit more, not feeling comfortable enough to stay in the pocket and wait for a receiver to come open. But he's tough, man. I'll give it to Carson. He is tough. He'll take a hit if he has to. But I think that report, I can't really speak to it. I'm not sure if he practices sloppily or not. And again, we don't get players in the locker room where we can kind of grab them one-on-one and say, hey, what do you think? Just between us, that kind of thing. Everything is kind of on Zoom, so everybody knows what's being asked. So I don't know. I don't know how true that is.
Let's go with this. When you covering the team since Carson Wentz has been the team's quarterback, have you ever in your mind ever thought Carson Wentz is practicing sloppily today?
No. I mean, I think, he's had problems with his accuracy in all the years that we've covered him. Even in practice, I don't think he's always an accurate thrower of the football. He throws some bad passes. He throws interceptions in practice, but I don't ever question his work habit. I mean, the best quarterback I can remember watch practice was Tom Brady when the New England Patriots came to Philadelphia for a joint practice when Chip Kelly was the coach. I mean, watching Brady practice to me was a treat. I mean, just his focus and his calmness and his presence to me was amazing. And Carson, nobody practices like that. But not once in my head did I ever think Carson's having a sloppy practice today, or he's not doing what the coach wants him to do. No, I never thought that.
That's good. I mean, that's a good perspective still. I mean, for someone that's always there and watching him, I just think when it rains, it pours. And that's when these stories start to leak out. Exactly right. I mean, it's just, everything's piling on like, okay, we're, almost overanalyzing it. It could just be as simple as Carson just needs to execute the plays that are called better. Run what Doug wants. Don't change don't change out of it. Let Doug's play breathe instead of trying to check out of it unless you absolutely see that play is going to fail. Right. At the end of the day, an MVP in the running MVP caliber quarterback and a Super Bowl winning head coach have to be better than what they're doing right now. It's that simple. It's not just Carson Wentz is the issue, or it's not just Doug Peterson's the issue. It's a collective effort. And the guys who have accomplished great things in this league, Carson Wentz being the Eagles' all-time leader in single-season passing touchdowns in a season when he didn't even finish the season. He's about to be an MVP if he would have. And then Doug Peterson, obviously Super Bowl winning head coach with his backup quarterback against Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. They need to be better. We expect better. This is the reason why we're so harsh on this team, even though they're 3-5-1, and they've made the playoffs the last couple of seasons. We deserve to be hard on this team because they've shown to us this is what they can be, and anything short of that right now, complete disappointment. Yeah, and you could go on with Carson's accomplishments. I mean, he was the first Eagle quarterback to throw for over 4,000 yards. What he did last year without having a receiver go over 500 yards receiving. I know he had the tight ends, but, to do that without a receiver that you can depend on, that's a big feather in his cap too. I mean, he's done a lot of good. I mean, to me, his resume speaks for itself, and he deserves to play his way through this over these final 7 games. Right, and that's what I hate when people say, like, we haven't really seen Carson Wentz be that good since 2017, where I thought last year he played extremely well. I think this year is more of an anomaly than what the National Football League narrative is on Carson Wentz. I am from guys watched him since North Dakota State. I can't believe he's playing like this, and that's why I think but it's a plethora of issues. It's not just nailing it on one thing. But I know Giovanni's over there, surprised. That's his man. That's his guy. What do you, Giovanni? Let's end the show real quick with. Let's say you're sitting in a room with Doug Peterson, Carson Wentz, and you're giving one of your Giovanni hype speeches that you do on make your videos on. What would you do? What would you say to them in that instance?
I would tell them probably that they need to communicate better, and they need to start maybe watching film together and just get the communication right.
I agree with that. I think that's a good point. That's a good point. I think, Ed, and it always stays in the back of my mind because I think it was such a key point of information you dropped on one of our previous episodes, is that Doug doesn't have his Frank Reich. He doesn't have the guy that he would game plan with every night before the game. He doesn't have the guy that he could lean on. That seems to be the issue.
He's got four guys.
Four guys he can't even trust.
Reiner,
he can't even trust.
Yeah. But he doesn't have that confidant, that one person he can lean on the night before a game to kind of fine tooth comb, the first 15 or 20 plays that they have scripted, tweak it, do whatever they want. They had just a great relationship together, and I'll never forget talking to Frank after the Super Bowl in Minnesota, and he said Doug's a rock star. He's a great play caller. He's a great designer of plays. He's going to be a rock star. And, we've seen what happened. I mean, Frank is doing pretty well in Indianapolis. I mean, I watched that game again. The Colts played Thursday night, and there were some questionable plays. It's not like Frank Reich is infallible. He was the head coach of the Chargers, but, he was for Doug Peterson. He was that security blanket for Doug.
Agreed. Yeah.
Oh, I go back to talking about Doug. There's a memorable quote, and I talked about this on the last episode, but it was on the Eagles 2017 Super Bowl DVD Blu-ray, and he's talking. It was right before the San Francisco game. He's talking to the coach of the San Francisco 49ers. He goes, "Yeah, this kid Carson Wentz. He's in there before anybody else. Works hard. This, that, and the other thing." And he'll be a great quarterback until we ruin him. And those were Doug's words, and hopefully they're not, prophetic coming to become the truth. So
yeah, I hope not.
Yeah. This is a good question to end the show real quick, and I'll get everybody's thoughts on it in the chat. The Giants loss feels a lot like the Dolphins lost last year. Should have been one. Turning point? Question mark. Good question. I don't know, though, because I don't think this team looked as awful or as disconformed as they did last year. And Carson Wentz wasn't playing as bad as he was this year, as he was last year. So I don't know if this is the turning point.
The Dolphins game a little bit last year, like they started out hot and had a lead, and eventually.
Oh, they had that game in the bag, man. I was there. I was right there. I had to watch that live. They blew that game. They had that in the bag, and that's why That's the thing that I've always seen with this, and I think it's a coaching issue. They play down to their competition, or they get too comfortable, and it always bites them in the boop.
Yeah, a little bit complacent,
Very.
I already said my turning point. My turning point was those two long passes they completed after Boston Scott and Myles Sanders make it 14-11. With 12 minutes to go in the third quarter, they get momentum, and then the defense just gives it right back. I mean, boom, 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 they're first and goal at the 10. And, I know that the Eagles scored again and then the Giants scored again. But, to me, that was really where you had to take control of that game. Your defense had to come up with a 3-and-out, get the ball back to the offense, and boom, go take the lead. But they didn't do it.
What was the final score again? How many points did the Eagles score?
17.
I mean, that's a respectable score in most games. So you should be able to pull off a win if your defense, holds off and stops, going, oh, that's a pretty pass. Oh, the other guy on the other team's catching it, not me. So I mean, if Schwartz turns on the pressure and if you put enough pressure on Donnie on Dimes over there. He tends to fall apart. So he had all that time back there to throw the ball, and his receivers had no problem contesting the catches. There were uncontested catches. Eagles starts, if you score 17 points, most times you're able to win the game. So to me, it's just been a recipe for disaster from all ingredients of this, the game plan.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know what happened to this defensive line. This unit that's supposed to really be the heart and soul of that defense.
Malik Jackson's back. Everybody's there, and
yeah, it's really just Brandon Graham and a bunch of guys. Fletcher Cox is still a great player, and he's still getting the attention of every offensive line like he should be. But Javon Hargrave's been disappointing. Malik Jackson has a dumb penalty per game still.
Yeah,
it's not pretty. I expect more from this defensive line, and that's really the heart and soul of this defense. If they're not living up to what we expect them to be, this defense doesn't seem to be as well. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what Giovanni thinks. Giovanni, you think that game could be the turning point potentially? That loss was the turning point where these guys wake up and build some momentum?
Hopefully. I mean, we haven't seen very much of the defense whenever the offense starts gaining rhythm. We saw it yesterday. The offense started gaining rhythm, and then the defense just couldn't keep it. And then we were back right at the start, and that game was just so atrocious.
I'm with you, bud. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Meanie's Birds Recap. We'll be back next week. Again, powered by Eagles Brawl, which is now sponsored by DraftKings and Manscaped. Thank you guys for all tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. Go Birds, hopefully.